Amar la.
We're on Daf Ayin Ches Amud Aleph Maseches Gittin in the Bavli, three lines in the top of the wide lines by the Mishna. Omer lo kanti shtar chayv zeh. If he told her, take this shtar chayv, this bill of debt, or he found her from behind him. Then she read it, Varehu Gito, and it's her get. Ain't a get. It's not considered a get. In other words, she found the get from behind the husband, and she read it, and it's a get. So she thought first it was a shtar chayv, or she just saw a document behind the husband, and she's reading it, and she thinks it's a get, and she sees that it is a get. Sorry, she doesn't think it's a get. It is a get. Ain't a get. It doesn't have the validity of a get. Hey gitech, until he tells her, this is your get. Rashi says, even after it's in her hands, he could tell her, this is your get, and it's enough. There's a Tosfos. The famous Rabbeinu Yitzchak Hazaken would require lenoisim get leishte to someone who gives a get to his wife. Loimar hey gitech, to say this is your get. V'gam hareyat muteres l'cholado, and also you are permissible to everybody. Kedemash megadish or yigin lemer gamkin v'don. Okay, so that's a okay. You can come here. Just be quiet. Okay. Nosan beyoda v'yishno v'yisheno. Yeah. They gave it in her hands and she's sleeping. She wakes up, she's reading it, and she sees her get in again. It's not a get until he tells her that this is your get. While she's awake, she has to hear that it's her get. We're talking about a case where she found the document from behind him on the floor. So even if he told her, hey, Gitech, how is that going to help? This is similar to, let's say somebody says, take your get from the top of the ground. Rava said, if you tell somebody to take the get from on the ground, he didn't say anything. And for the Gemara, maybe it was on him, it wasn't on the ground. When it says me'achodav in the Mishna, maybe she took it between his belt. She took it from his belt. So the Gemara asks, even if she took it from his belt, guys, you have to be quiet, okay? You have to be quiet. It's required. V'nosan, you have to have nesina, you have to give it in her hands, and we don't have it given in her hands. And for the Gemara Leitzricha, the Orak lo chartze, he twisted his thighs. That's interesting, to give it to her. That's like already a nesina, shlapte, and she took it out. We have a similar supporting brisa that says, Omer lo, if he told her, Kansi shtar chayv zeh, shlafte me'achoydov, he told her, take the shtar chayv, or she took it from behind it. She read it and she realizes it's her get. Ain't a get that she it's not a get until he tells her, until there's an amira that this is your get. It's not a get until he takes it from her and then he gives it back to her. And he tells her, and the son of if he gave it to her while she's sleeping, she wakes up and she reads it and it's her get. It's not a get until he tells her, hey gitech divrei Rebbe. Shimon Elazar says until some people say really it's not a get. He has to take it from her, the and give it back to her and telling her, hey gitech. So the question is, why does the Brisa need to tell us in both dinim the case where she was sleeping, the case where he told her was a shtar chayv. Why do we have to say in both cases it's not a get until he takes it back and so on? But we need both cases. The itmar bahach kamaiso. If you're only going to say the first case, the kamaiso, bahikom reb mishum debasi grushi. She's awake. Rashi explains she's basi grusha, which means she's awake. All that's missing is the amiro to say over hey gitech. So therefore, shaperdam ki omer lahachi shaperdam. Havel nosim biyod biyisheno. But if he gave it in her hand, then she's sleeping de lavasi grushihi, where she's sleeping, so you can't give a get to somebody who's sleeping. Maybe he'll admit to Shimon Lazar that it's not good, that he has to take it and give it back to her when she's awake. If you're only going to say the case of where she's sleeping, only in that case is Shimon Lazar going to say his shita. But in the case where she's awake, maybe he'll admit that all he has to do is say it, he doesn't have to take it back and then return it while saying it. Sricha, that's what we need in both cases. Okay. Mendel, you have to be quiet, okay? That's just trying to learn. Omer Rava says, if he wrote for her a get and gave it in the hand of her servant, who's sleeping, and mishamartoi, and he's able to be mishamer. How does it get? It's fine. It's a get because it's an evet. Rashi says they have a chatzedim shmer sladaita because he's sleeping. So the shimur is through her. But neir ain't a get if the evet woke up. It's not a get. Because then the evet has his own das, his own mind. Has to be a chotzer l'daita with her mind, with her controlling it and not him. Yoshin and Mishamarta is a get. The Gemara analyzes why is it a get if he's sleeping and watching it. If it's a walking chotzer, is not koina. We have in Shnai Moiches and Betalis. When it comes to kinyan, when it comes to acquisitions, a walking chotzer is not koina. If you're going to say because he's sleeping, it's different. If you're not koina while you're walking, you're also not going to be koina while you're standing or sitting. So too sleeping. So the Gemara answers talking about if he's tied up. If he's tied up, then it's a kinyan. Then it's a kinyan. Then it works. Hello, bekofis. We're talking about kofis if he's tied up. If he's tied up, then it's a chotzer. Then there's a kinyan. I think you might have to be sleeping also. Or maybe if he's tied up, it's a different story. Let's take a look at the halacha. I mean, it's not really so relevant. Nobody really has servants anymore. You know, we were reading on Shabbos. I gave a Shabbaton, so I was teaching some nigunim, and one of them was Kianu Amecho. And one of we're your servants and you're our master. And the way they translated it was we're your slaves, and it just didn't sound good. I mean, it's true. We have to be Hashem's servant to the highest level. Would
that be because there's only one word in Hebrew for slave and one word, the same word for slave and for servant?
Servant. Right? I guess we are. In other words, we're totally you want to be totally nullified to him, which is like the idea of a slave, even over. It just doesn't sound good, and it has bad connotations. But I guess that's that's what we're trying to say. Okay, like this. Nosan biyadav. This is Shulchan Aruch Even Ezer Simon Kuf Lamed Tes, which is what the din for this Gemara. Nosan biyadav devu neir v'mishamartoi. Even if he's awake, as long as she's guarding him, imaya kofetz get. So that's what I thought. I wasn't sure. That's why I checked it up. Even if the Eved is awake, as long as he's tied up, it's a get. It's as if it reached her chutzah that she's standing on the side. We made a kofus. Remember, we had a machlokes if she has to stand on the side or not. Halacha is she has to stand on the side. We made a kofus if he's not tied up, inu get. V'yashem the tired to be in. Some people say you need both. Some people tie choice in the Gemara that you need both. Like what my suffix was. The kofus kadei shalei yichotzim halachas. First of all, kofus. Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to switch to a different location. Mendel's being too loud. Kofus kadesha lo yehi chotzer malachas v'yoshin kadesha mishtamer l'daita. First of all, kofus, and also in order that it shouldn't be a walking chotzer, and yoshin sleeping, in order that it should be mishtamer l'daita. Yeah. Okay. But if it's not tied up, it's a get puzzle. Mishna. We're up to the Mishna on Daf Ayin Ches. The next Mishnah, the one on the bottom of the page. I say Medes B'Rishus Harabim, if she was standing in the Rishus Harabim. V'zarkei lo, and he threw his get to her. He threw her get to her. Kodev lo, Megadesh was closer to her than if she's divorced. Kodev lo, and Megadesh is closer to him, but she's not divorced. Mechza, Megadesh, Vena Megadesh is 50-50. If it's midway point between both of them, then she's divorced and not divorced at the same time. Then Kedushin, similarly, when it comes to Kedushin, it's the same thing. If he's throwing, if he's Mekadisher with Shtar, with a document, depends if it's closer to her or to him. So too when it comes to the Chayv, a debt. He says, throw my debt to me, and he threw it to him. If it's closer to the Malva, to the lender, the Malva gets it. If it's closer to the loive, half hour. So then the loive is chayav. In other words, he still owes the money. It's as if he didn't pay. If it's 50-50, they'll divide it. So let's say, for example, it got lost. That's what we're talking about. So both of them divide the loss if it's 50-50. It's obviously very hard to get a case where it's exactly 50-50. Give me 1 minute. I just have to change locations. I came downstairs where they weren't, and now that's where they are. I'll try to go upstairs. Okay, let's try again. The question of the Gemara is like this. How do you have close to him and close to her? What does that even mean? Rav says like this. If it's in her 4 amas, that means it's closer to her. If it's within his 4 amas, it's closer to him. Rashi explains, it says in Maseches Bavli Metzia, if a person has 4 amas, it's koine for him. So the question is, what's 50-50? They're both standing in the same 4 amas, face to face. Within 4 amas of the get, sorry. It's a Venn diagram. What's it called? The Venn diagram, where you have the get in her 4 amas and in his 4 amas. The Gemara asks, whoever came first. Just look at whoever came first. If you're going to say they both came at the same time, how is that possible? They were both standing exactly in the 8 amas. And the get is exactly in the middle. So that's very rare. If we get Yotzi, the get is partially in her 4 amos and partially in his 4 amos because they're exactly 8 amos apart. The get is still in his rishus. If it's within his 4 amos, the get is in his rishus because it has to leave his 4 amos, has to leave him. So there's no nisina, there's no giving over of the get. We're on the next page now, Tayin Chesam and base. Says if you have 2 groups of witnesses, one of them says it's closer to him, the other one says it's closer to her. Aha. So the Gemara, that was Rab's. Rab's opinion was her 4 amos, his 4 amos. However, Rabbi Yochanan holds, Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Kariv Lo Shnino Afilu Me'am, Kariv Lo Shnino Afilu Me'am. Closer to her could be 100 amos away. Closer to him could be 100 amos away. So what's 50-50? It was explained to me the idea of what the concept of what Rabbi Yochanan was saying. The din, if he's able to guard it and she cannot, it's closer to him. If she's able to guard it and he can't, that's closer to her. If both of them can or both of them can't, that's 50-50. Gemara goes on. They said over this teaching in front of Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Yonason, who came from Bavli to Eretz Yisrael. That's what they said. They said exactly this. It has to do with Shmita. If she can watch the get, it's hers. Even if it's out of her 4 amos. If he can watch the get, it's his. Hasn't yet left his rishus. If they both can or they both can't, that's 50-50. Omar, so Rabbi Yochanan said, Yadin Chavrin Bavli Lefrushe Kihaitam. The Archavedim from Bavli are able to be mefarish according to this reason, the reason that I already said. Tani Rabbi Yochi, we have a supporting brayso. Rabbi Eliezer, Kolshu Court of Law. Kolshu Court of Law. Molu. What is that word? I'm not even sure. Let's see. Here. Oh, I'm in the wrong page. Sorry, 1 second. Here, I got it. Miloi. Koshu Korav Lo Miloi. Oh, so Miloi from to him. That's what it is. So the word is like this. Koshu Korav Lo Miloi. Anything that's closer to her than to him. And then a dog came and took it and it's gone. She's not divorced. So right away the Gemara asks, she's not divorced. She's able, as long as she's able to be shomer, but she should automatically be divorced. That's what we're saying before. And does she have to guard her get her whole life? In other words, the moment there's an nesina and there's a kabbalah, there's a giving and there's a receiving, it should be a kosher get. So why do we say if it's closer to her and a dog takes it, any megudeshes? We must be saying this. It's closer to her than to him. And if a dog would come and take it, theoretically, if a dog would come and take it, he would be able to watch and she wouldn't. Any megudeshes has to do with shmira, even if it's kodev law. Rashi explains if there's a hefsek nar, if there's like a river or a mountain between them, that if a dog would come, she wouldn't be able to guard it from the dog, but he could. Sharp one. No, the Kurva of the Mishnah is that she should be able to bend over and take it. So he's not as lenient as Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says you can have a get even if she's able to be shomer. He says no, you have to be able to bend over and take it. But Afal Pikain, don't paskin that it's a get until she takes it in her hand. And Rashi explains the reason is we're worried you might make a mistake at Gzeda, that you might think that a rochik is caught if something far is close. So just don't make a get until it reaches her head. So there was a case that he threw it was close to her, and then the husband died before she had a chance to take it in her hand. And they required her mitzad hasofik or mitzad gzeda because of the gzeda, because of this decree that has to reach her hand, that she needs chalitza. So that's pretty crazy. Throws the get. She's on her way to pick it up. All of a sudden, he collapses and he dies. Geen lini kiddushin soto when it comes to kiddushin. Same thing about code of law and code of law, closer to her and closer to him. Ravasi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Gittin, only when it comes to Gittin did they say that Meguresh is because of Kurva, because of closeness, but not for Dover Acher. For example, Choiv. If he threw a Choiv that's closer to him and it got lost, only when it comes to get, Rashi explains, because Bal Karchuknu law, against her will she gets it, so therefore right away it's going to be a get even if it's close to her and she doesn't actually get in her hands. But by anything else, not. Eisvei Rababa, the Rabasi, right away, Rababa asks on Rabasi, V'chein Kedushin. It says in our Mishnah, so too for Kedushin. It says in our Mishnah, clearly, not just for get, but also for Kedushin. That's different. Because Shiny also it says there's a hekish. We have a juxtaposition in the pasuk that we learn Kedushin from get. V'yotza, she's leaving, which is get. V'haisa, she's getting betrothed. So that we learn the dinim to each other, just like just like by get to work, so too by Kedushin. The Gemara goes on. So too when it comes to chayv. It says in our Mishnah, just so too for chayv, for a debt, clearly. And we said, Zreikli chayvi, if the malva told the Levi, throw my debt to me, v'zarkeloi, and he threw it to him, called of the malva, zoche. Zocha hamalva. Oh, they changed the girsa, yeah. Zocha malva. If it ends up being closer to the lender, it's now the lender's, and if the money gets lost, it's the lender's problem. If it's closer to the loiva, the borrower, it's his problem if it gets lost. Mechsa is 50-50. They divide it. So we see in our Mishnah, the Mishnah applies this din of cut of law, closer to him and to her, which in this case is the malva and the loiva, the borrower and the lender, to debt also. So the Gemara answers, my skin and domerla zreikli chayvi v'sifta. The malva said, he himself said, the siftar, that you'll be potter, you'll be exempt. But if he just says zreikli chayvi without saying v'siftar, that doesn't count. He has to actually come into his hand. It has to come into the malva's hand in order for you to be exempt from your debt. Unless he himself says v'siftar. You can make a tanah, you can make a condition when it comes to money. But he has to say it. By get, you don't have to say it. And by condition also, you don't have to say it. So the Gemara asks the obvious question, if that's the case, what's the chiddush? Obviously, if you say v'siftar, then it's v'siftar. If he told him as a get. So that also would work. Even if it didn't say v'siftar, you just said then that would also work. Still, what's the chiddush? It's obvious. You might think that he could tell him, I was just kidding around with you, because he didn't clearly say v'siftar. No, the moment he says that, he says it. He says it, he says it. Okay, next in. If there's a get in her hand and a string in his hand, the get is in her hand and there's a string in his hand. If he's able to take it away from her and pull it to him from this string, she's not megureshes. Because there's no nesina, that has to be complete giving. He has to give it over to him because there's still a string attached to him. It's not a giving over. If not, megureshes. My time being krisis v'leika has to be chorus. It has to be separation between them, and there isn't. If her hand was on a slant, she didn't stretch her fingers out to receive. Her hands were just on a slant. And he threw it to her. Even if it didn't reach, even if it reached her hands, because she's not receiving. Her hands are not receiving. They're just on a slant. They're open. They're slanted. They're not. They're just going to fall down. So the Gemara asks, "Amai? Why not? Even if it falls from her hands, it's falling within her 4 amas. And a person's koida in his 4 amas. Who cares if her hands are not fit to receive?" And for the Gemara, b'deloy noch. Rashi answers. Rashi explains it burnt before it hit the ground. It burnt before it hit the ground. It bounced off her hands and burnt in the fire. There was a fire. V'sigrash mi'aviro the arba amis. Why can't she become megureshes from the airspace? Even if loy noch him got burnt before it hits the ground, there's still the airspace. Tifshit the boy Rabbi Lazar. We could answer the question of Rabbi Lazar. Arba amis shomer yes lanaver in lanaver. His question was if the arba amis have aver or not. Tifshit ein lanaver. We could learn that there's no aver. So the Gemara answers, she was in a river, so it's flowing away. There's never any, it's not even fit to have a hanocha. It's a different story. Weiter. Go a little further. We're up to the Mishna Daf Ayin Tes Amud Aleph, 79a right now. If she was standing on a rooftop, and he threw it to her, the moment it reaches the airspace of the gag, she's meguresh, she's divorced. He's on top and she's below. And he threw it to her. The moment it leaves the airspace of the gag to her airspace, even if even if it gets erased or burnt, she's divorced. The Gemara asks, mintar. There's no shimur. It's not being watched. A wind could blow it away before it even has a hanocha. So even if the wind didn't blow it away, if something else happened and a dog took it or rain erased it, why are we going to say megureshes mina avir? We had just established, especially in the Gemara before, we just explained, you have to have something that's fit for hanocha, and it's very windy on the roof. We're talking about where it has a fence. So because it has a fence, it's considered mintar. There's shimur. Talking about that it got within 3 tvachim. So because it got within 3 tvachim, that's fine. As long as it gets within 3 tvachim. If he's on top and she's on the bottom also, he said it's fine. We'll have the same question we asked before. In other words, yeah, you're throwing it off the roof. It might not even reach the chutzner. It might fly right over the chutzner. If her walls were taller than the roof, specifically talking where her walls are tall on the roof, then you have a shimur. Then it's being watched. Okay, so we have 3 shittas that all say the same thing. Talking about the lower mechittas.
Did you say something about an aliyah?
What?
What did you say about the aliyah? Oh, maybe.
No, we're talking about the husband's on the roof and he threw the get down. As long as the walls of the courtyard are taller than the roof, then it's considered a get. Even if it never reaches her, the moment it goes within those walls, you're fine. Or even not within those walls, because it's gonna fall within the walls. It's okay. Even if it gets burnt or whatever before it reaches her. This sounds like Rebbe. When it comes to Shabbos, there's a concept called Zoydek. You're not allowed to be moishit. Oh, so what if you throw something from Rishus Rabban to Rishus Rabban with Rishus Yochanan in the middle? According to Rebbe, you're chayev twice. According to Chum, you're patur. Why? According to Rebbe, you're chayev because even if though it's in the air and there was never a hanocha, never landed on the Rishus Yochid, it's as if it landed. Kluta k'mishahuncha. If it's in the airspace of the Rishus Yochid, it's as if there was a hanocha, as if it landed in the Rishus Yochid. Chum say you're patur. So to here, it never landed. It got burnt before it hit the ground. But the fact of the matter is, because it hit the airspace, this sounds like Shitas Rebbe, the opinion of Rebbe. He told him, this is Ula telling Rababa, you can even say the Chachavim will agree that in the case of the get, they only argue about Shabbos. Here, however, it's not the same thing. By Shabbos, you need a Akira and a Hanocha. You have to take it off the ground and put it back down. So on Shabbos, they'll say there was never a Akira and there's never a Hanocha. It was in the air the whole time. Here, however, we have different parameters. Here, what we're looking for is to watch it. But mintar was within the walls. Even if it got burned before, there was still mintar. There was the netira. We're up to the 2 dots now. Nimchak, if it got erased. It's only if it got erased on its way down. Obviously, very, very unusual. But if somehow it was in a flood of water, got caught in a flood of water, and before it hit the ground, it was already erased. It's only if it was while it was on his way down that this happened. But if it was while he was throwing it up that it got erased, loy. My time it has to be on Yerida, it has to be the Hanocha to come down. But if it's Ba'aliyah on its way up, it doesn't count. Nisraf if it got burnt. Next 2 dots in the Gemara. This is only if the get was thrown in the air before the fire was burning. But if the fire was burning the whole time, because it was always going to be burnt. But if the fire only happened later, that's a different story. Then it's fine. Rav Chisda says that if the husband is lending for his wife a place in his chutzner to receive the get, he's not going to lend everything. Whatever he lends, he lends. Whatever he doesn't lend, he doesn't lend. We're not going to say that he's giving everything because a person doesn't give more than one place unless he specifies. She has to also do the kinyan, whatever. I think. For sure, by Matani, you have to do a chazak. You have to open the door, close the door. I think also by lending. The Rami Bar Chama told Rava, how does the elder know this? It's a Mishna. His source is the Mishna. She was on the roof and he threw it to her. When the get reached the airspace of the gag of the roof, she's divorced. What are we dealing with? If everything belongs to her, why do you need to have the airspace of the roof even in the chutzner? It also should belong to her. Rather, everything belongs to him. Even if it reaches the roof, what's going to help? The pshito. Rather, what are we talking about? Begagdita, it's her roof. And his chutzner. Problem is, what if it's vice versa? David Sefer, it says, what at the end of the Mishnah, what does it say? He's on top and she's on the bottom of his arkel, and he threw it to her. When it leaves the rishus of the gag, if it got erased or burnt, she's still divorced. So it's the same case, just an opposite. They're in a different place. So, but if it's her roof and his chutzner, my megreshes, why is she going to be divorced? Rather, we're going to have to say it's his roof and her chutzner. So the question is, Reisha begagdi dov v'chotzer didei. The beginning of the case, the first case is talking about her roof and his chotzer. Seifa begagdi didei v'chotzer didei. And the end of the Mishnah is talking about his roof and her chotzer. How does that make sense? Doesn't make sense. Why would we flip the case? I mean, I think it does make sense, but Elalav the oishla moke. Talking about where he lent her a place. The chad mokum oishli she today became a slave. Person lends one place. He's not going to lend two places. Midi area. Do you have a rye from there? He told him. Each case is in its own parameter. Because we're teaching you that each one has its own airspace. And other of it's nishazay pashit. The safer we have to say the walls of the courtyard are going higher than the roof. We're now 4 lines on the bottom. There's 3 dinim when it comes to Gittin. 3 differences by Gittin than any other Isser. Number 1, this that Rebbe said, this that Rebbe says that you're chayv if you throw something through the airspace of Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, even if it never landed in the Rosh Hashanah, the private domain, because the Chacham disagree. They say it actually has to land. In Shabbos, this machlekes is only for Shabbos. Here it has to do with netiro, and like we already explained, there's a netiro. Even if it got burnt after, the fire came after, it's a different story. But number 2, Rav Chissa said in Milchas Shabbos that if you have a tall stick in the Rosh Hashanah and the top is a basket, and you threw it in the basket, even if it's 100 amas from the ground, you're chayav the feature because a private domain goes up to the sky. Public domain only goes 10 tvachim. Private domain goes up to the sky. This is on Shabbos, for Shabbos. Here, however, it's going above the walls. It doesn't count. It has to be within the walls. So if it's going above the walls, there's no shimur. So here's a case where Shabbos is stricter and a get is more lenient. We're now turning the page to Ayin Tesselman Bay 79b. Number 3, the third case. Person should not stand on his roof and get rainwater from his friend's roof. You're taking from one rishus to the other rishus without a roof chatzeris. You have to have an angle. Even though you don't live on the roof, nobody's living on the roof. So why is that different rishuyos? Why is that different ownership? It still is. Why? Because just like they live, they're considered different houses below where people actually live. So to above. Shabbos, this is only for Shabbos. When it comes to get, if the husband had 2 Gittin, two rooftops, one next to the other, and he lent her one, he's not going to care. When it comes to a rooftop, he's not going to care, and she gets both of them. So if it lands on the other rooftop, that's fine. Bai said like this. If you have 2 courtyards, one inside the other, The inner courtyard is hers, and the outer courtyard is his. And the outer walls are taller than the inner walls. And he threw it to her. Even if it goes into the aver of his mechitzas megureshes. In other words, his walls are taller, so it's in the airspace of his wall. It's in her chutzner, but it's above her wall. It's lower than his wall, the outer wall. She's still megureshes. This is like a chiddush of Abaya. What's the reason? My time up. Her courtyard itself is being watched by his walls. Mashenkin bekupas. This will not apply for boxes. What's the case? If you have two boxes, one inside the other, the inner one is hers and the outer one is his. He threw it to her. Even if it reaches the aver of the inner wall and then it got burnt, my time is all they know. The reason is because there's no hanocha. The airspace of a kli doesn't help you. Even if it's in her airspace. Only a real wall, but if it's just a vessel, it's not going to help. So the Gemara asks the obvious question, even if it did land in her kli, how's that going to help? By Hava. Because her kli is in his kli, you're having the buyers, it's as if it's like the buyer's kli in the owners in the property of the meicher of the seller. The box of the husband doesn't have a base, and her box is actually on the ground. So that's different. Okay,
well, no bottom, right?
His box had no bottom. Her box is on the ground, so that's different. It's not considered like her kalim. What?
It comes into contact with
the ground. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. We'll do one more mission. It's very short, and then we'll stop for today. Mishna, a person can use a get yoshin to divorce his wife. If Vasil says it's forbidden. Get yoshin. What's a get yoshin? If he's alone with her, he has yichud with her after he wrote it to her. What's machlekes? Beshami says we're not going to say that maybe he's going to wait 2 or 3 years between writing it and giving it. She's going to have kids from her. She's going to have kids from him within that time. Then she's going to divorce her with this get, which has an early zman. And people will see that the get was written before the child was born. And they're going to think that he gave it to her mishas ksiva. And they're going to say that it's like born out of wedlock. It's a pug, it's a pagam, it's a blemish on the family. So we're worried this might happen, so we say he can't have a get yoshin. So he's alone with her after he gave her the get. If she used the get, however, if she used the get to get married with, even stronger. If he gave her the get and now he's gone, he can't give her another one. She can use this to get married lechatchila. That's what seems to be the halacha. Okay, we're up to the Mishna on Daf Ayin Test Amud Beis. I guess we'll continue tomorrow, God willing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
You too.